My name is Elena Hartwell, and in my years on the bench, I've sent men away for life without a flicker of emotion. Yet nothing compared to the tight knot in my chest as I stood there, watching my sister reduce me to a punchline at her engagement party. The crystal ballroom of the Meridian Hotel glittered like a scene pulled from a fantasy. Around 200 guests mingled beneath grand chandeliers, their laughter mingling with the soft harmonies of a live string quartet. Wealth surrounded me, the kind that wasn't earned overnight, but layered over generations, hiding ancient scandals behind polished smiles. I stood quietly near the champagne fountain, blending in with the crowd in my modest black dress, watching Victoria hold court with the air of a queen, exactly how she'd always seen herself. At 28, she was breathtaking. Her golden hair shimmered in the light. Her laughter drew men in like moths to a flame, and her confidence came from a life where no one had ever dared deny her anything. She hadn't spotted me yet. I'd slipped in late, choosing the side entrance over the main doors, a small act of rebellion that spared me the agony of the receiving line, where she smiled for photos beside her fiancé, Marcus Sterling. Yes, that Marcus Sterling. Tech mogul, media darling, the kind of man whose name hung over hospital wings and was carved into university plaques. Elena! I turned as our mother approached, her smile tight and weary. Patricia Hartwell bore more years than the 55 she claimed, though she'd never admit it. A decade of chasing youth with expensive skincare and discreet cosmetic tweaks, all in a futile race to keep pace with Victoria's rising star. "So you came," she said, though her tone hinted she'd prefer the opposite. "Victoria invited me." I answered, technically the truth. The text had simply read, "Engagement party, Saturday. Dress nicely. Don't embarrass me." Mother's eyes traveled over my outfit, her disapproval thinly veiled. "You could have called. I would have helped you find something more fitting." Before I could reply, Victoria's voice echoed across the ballroom. "Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention?" All eyes shifted to the small stage where Victoria stood, radiant in a gown that probably cost more than most cars. Marcus stood at her side, tall, polished, his arm resting lightly around her waist. "We're so grateful you're here tonight," Victoria began, her voice carrying easily across the crowd. "Marcus and I are thrilled to share this special moment with the people who mean the most to us." Her gaze swept the room, noticeably skipping over me. "I know some of you must be wondering how a girl from a tiny town landed someone like Marcus." Her playful smile drew a round of soft laughter. "Well, I've always believed in chasing big dreams. My family taught me that success comes to those who aren't afraid to aim high." Our father gave a proud nod from his seat near the front. The same father who'd been a ghost throughout our childhood, always traveling for work, or so he said, but never missing a chance to bask in Victoria's spotlight. And speaking of family, Victoria's eyes locked onto mine across the crowd. "I want to take a moment to acknowledge my big sister, Elena. She's here tonight, hiding out in the back corner as usual." Heat crept up my neck as dozens of heads turned in my direction. I forced a polite smile and gave a small, reluctant wave. "Elena's always been a practical one," Victoria continued with a sugary sweetness masking a subtle jab. "While I chased my dreams, she stayed close to home. Well, let's just say she's really good with paperwork." A ripple of polite laughter spread through the guests. My jaw clenched. "She works for the county. Clerical work, filing, that sort of thing. You know how it is. Someone has to keep the bureaucrats in order." Victoria chuckled, as if my career were some quaint oddity. "I keep telling her she should dream bigger, but Elena's always been content with simple things." This time, the laughter was louder. I caught glimpses of Marcus's colleagues exchanging smirks. One woman leaned toward a friend, whispering behind her hand. "And so," Victoria lifted her champagne glass, "here's to family, even those who prefer the safe, simple path." The crowd cheered and raised their glasses. I stood motionless, my own drink untouched. The party soon regained its usual hum of chatter and music. I considered slipping away. I'd shown up, played my part, but something inside refused to budge. Maybe it was Victoria's smug expression, or the way our parents had joined in her quiet mockery. "Elena Hartwell." I turned toward a well-dressed woman, perhaps in her 60s, her silver hair styled elegantly, sharp eyes gleaming behind designer glasses. Yes. She extended her hand. Margaret Donnelly. I thought I recognized you. I sat in your courtroom last month, the Henderson case. A cold weight settled in my chest. I glanced around, noting that no one seemed to notice us. I'm sorry, I said softly. You must have me mistaken for someone else. Margaret's eyebrows lifted. Oh, I don't think so. Judge Hartwell, Superior Court. You presided over the Henderson embezzlement trial. 15-year sentence, if I recall. The prosecution was quite pleased. Before I could answer, Marcus Sterling appeared at Margaret's side. Mrs. Donnelly, how lovely to see you. He greeted her with a warm kiss on the cheek. I hope you're enjoying yourself. Marcus, darling, it's been wonderful. I was just chatting with Judge Hartwell here. Margaret smiled. I had no idea Victoria's sister was Elena Hartwell. Marcus's smile faltered slightly. I think there's been some confusion. This is Elena. She works in, what was it, county administration? Margaret's brow furrowed. No, dear. This is Judge Elena Hartwell. Superior Court, 14th District. I should know. I've been covering legal affairs for the Tribune for over 2 decades. I watched the color drain from Marcus's face. Judge. His voice was tight. I met his gaze evenly. Superior Court judge, appointed 3 years ago. But Victoria said he trailed off, visibly struggling to process what this meant. And what exactly did Victoria say? I asked, though the answer was no surprise. Margaret glanced between us, sensing the shift. Perhaps I should. No, I cut in gently but firmly. Please stay. I'd love to hear what my sister's been telling people about my career. Marcus tugged slightly at his tie. She said you worked county records, filing, admin support. So, a secretary. I finished for him, letting the word hang in the air like a verdict. Margaret's eyes widened in dawning realization. Oh, dear, she murmured. Across the room, Victoria was still holding her audience captive, her laughter ringing out as she shared some animated story. She had no idea that her carefully crafted narrative was crumbling, just 20 feet away. Elena, Marcus began cautiously, may I ask, what kind of cases do you typically handle? Felonies, white-collar crime, large-scale fraud, corruption. Just last week, I sentenced a former city councilman to 12 years. I glanced at Margaret. That made the front page, didn't it? Margaret nodded. It did. Judge Hartwell's reputation for tough sentencing has made her quite a name in legal circles. Marcus stared at me, really stared, as if seeing me for the first time. Victoria never mentioned. Victoria never asked about my work, I said quietly. Victoria had made up her mind long ago about who I was, and asking questions might have made her neat little story harder to sell. But I'm sure your parents must be very proud of Victoria, Margaret said gently. I gave a polite smile. My achievements don't exactly fit the family's preferred storyline. Margaret cleared her throat with practiced diplomacy. Judge Hartwell, I've been hearing whispers. Rumor has it you're in consideration for a seat on the state Supreme Court. Any truth to that? I noticed the sharp breath Marcus took beside me. I don't comment on rumors. I replied evenly. You know that Mrs. Donnelly. She chuckled softly. Had to try. Well, I'll leave you to enjoy the party. Congratulations on your sister's engagement. As Margaret walked away, silence settled awkwardly between Marcus and me. The party's glamour continued around us, but something had shifted beneath the surface. Why didn't you correct her? Marcus finally asked. During Victoria's speech? I considered his question. Would you have believed me? Or would you have thought I was just a bitter sister trying to upstage her big moment? He had no answer. Elena! Victoria's bright voice sliced through the air as she joined us, her cheeks flushed from champagne and attention. There you are. I was just telling the Peton family about your cute little job with the county. They thought it was adorable. Actually, Marcus interrupted, his voice careful. I think there's been a bit of misunderstanding about Elena's job. Victoria's smile faltered. Misunderstanding? What are you talking about? She isn't a county clerk, Marcus said, watching her closely. She's a judge. The word hit like a blow. Victoria's face shifted rapidly. Surprise, disbelief, and then something that looked a lot like dread. What? Superior Court Judge, I said quietly. I've been on the bench for 3 years. Her champagne glass slipped from her fingers, shattering on the marble floor. The sharp sound echoed in the stunned hush that fell over the room. That can't be true, she whispered. Why not? Because you decided it wasn't. The crowd's chatter faded into silence, heads subtly turning toward us. Elena's exaggerating, Victoria said, her laugh brittle. She probably means traffic court or something minor like that. The Henderson embezzlement trial. Margaret Donnelly's voice rang from nearby. 15-year sentence. Made national headlines. Victoria's face turned pale. The Westfield corruption case. Someone else chimed in. I saw it on the news. Judge Hartwell presiding. Marcus gave Victoria a look that was edging into alarm. You told me she worked in filing. I thought, Victoria stammered, then spun toward me, her eyes flashing. Why didn't you tell me? The absurdity of the question almost made me laugh. When exactly, Victoria? During the 5-minute calls where you only talked about yourself? Or maybe at the family dinners I stopped being invited to 3 years ago? That's not fair. You could have said something. I did, I said quietly. When I finished law school, when I passed the bar, when I was appointed judge, I sent announcements. I made calls. I paused, locking eyes with her. Do you know what Dad said when I told him about my appointment? That's nice, honey. Did you hear? Victoria's getting engaged. Silence. Even the string quartet had stopped. You let me make a fool of myself, Victoria hissed. I met her glare without flinching. No, you did that on your own. I just stopped correcting the story you insisted on telling. Marcus's gaze flicked between us, something shifting in his expression. You lied to me about your own sister. I didn't lie, Victoria snapped. I mean, she never talks about her work. I just assumed. You assumed I was a failure, I said gently, not with anger but with quiet finality. It was easier than admitting you never cared enough to know who I really became. Tears welled in Victoria's eyes, smudging her perfect makeup. Around us, guests whispered, some subtly reaching for their phones. I could almost hear them Googling my name. Elena. Our mother's voice broke through as she appeared at Victoria's side, her face pale. Perhaps we should... Should what, Mom? I asked, my voice low. Keep pretending I don't exist unless it's convenient? She flinched like I'd struck her. I looked around, at the shocked faces, the judging stares, the family that had never truly seen me. For a moment, I felt the old instinct, the urge to apologize, to shrink, to make things right. Instead, I stood tall. Thank you for the invitation, Victoria. I wish you and Marcus every happiness. I turned to Marcus. One piece of advice. Ask questions. You might be surprised by the answers. With steady, deliberate steps, the same measured walk I use when entering my courtroom, I headed for the exit. Behind me, the hum of whispered conversation swelled, thick with scandal and curiosity. Elena, wait! I turned. Marcus hurried after me, his expression earnest. Wellstone, I know. His voice was tight, with something between confusion and regret. I studied him. Handsome, privileged, but not without heart. About Victoria? I said softly, that's for you to find out. And about you? I handed him a card from my clutch. The Honorable Elena Hartwell, Superior Court Judge, 14th Judicial District. He stared down at it. Will this affect the engagement? He asked, voice low. That depends. I met his eyes. On whether you can love someone you never really knew. I left him standing there, still staring at the card in his hand. Outside, the night air felt crisp and pure. I walked to my car unhurriedly, savoring the calm after the ballroom's chaos. My phone buzzed, messages from Victoria, from family members who'd suddenly remembered I existed. I deleted them all without reading. Tomorrow, I'd return to my courtroom, to the cases that mattered, to the life I'd built on my own terms. Tonight, I drove home to my quiet house, its shelves lined with law books and framed commendations. For the first time, I knew my family had finally seen me for who I truly was. The truth carried a weight no amount of champagne or glitter could rival, and I was perfectly fine carrying it alone. What did you think of this story? Share your thoughts in the comments. If you like more stories like this, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss a video. See you in the next one.